Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. The first question for today comes from Dem Crispy Nuggets, and it is, Hey Matimio, do you think that the spring patch brought more players or made players leave Battlefield 4? Now that is an interesting question. I think when the spring patch first went live, there were some growing pains. Every single gun saw some sort of adjustment here and there. There were buffs, there were nerfs, some saw more bullet spread, less bullet spread. Everything under the sun saw some tweak here and there. And because of that, I think for the first couple of weeks, a lot of people really weren't thrilled with this update. If you got 1,000 kills with your favorite gun, or 2,000, or 20,000, some people tell me that they've gotten 20,000 kills with like the AEK or the SR61 bolt-action rifle. If you're one of those players, and all of a sudden you return to the game and it's not what you remember, it's not that awesome gun that you loved before, you're of course not going to be very thrilled with that. But now that we've had a while to play the patch, we've gotten some time to get adjusted and acclimated to these new changes, I think for the most part, I'm only really speaking from personal experience and what I've kind of gathered from the community, is that a lot of people are fairly happy with these changes. The reason why I've grown to like the spring patch is that it's now allowed for a wider diversity of weapons to be viable on the battlefield. Before the patch, the slower RPM guns really weren't all that useful. They pretty much sucked. I mean, you could use the SAR-21 for that accuracy, but because you could basically have that pinpoint-like accuracy with something like the AEK or with the FAMAS, there really wasn't any incentive to use the slower RPM guns because you just didn't have the same killing potential. Getting outgunned at a distance when someone's using the AEK when you're using one of these slow RPMs like the LSAT is pretty frustrating. And so for the most part, I have been really happy with the way that they handled the weapon balance. A wider array of weapons are now viable. If you want to use the guns that pretty much were useless before, they now have at least a decent place in the game. And I think for the most part, that's a good thing. That said though, there have been a few changes that I know that many people haven't been thrilled by. And I think the biggest one is the flashbangs. I don't know if these specifically have caused people to leave the game. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but I know that many people are very frustrated by it, me included. When you're in a hallway and you're just trying not to be flashbanged, you're just kind of sitting there waiting for the flash effect to leave, there's no way for you to counter it. You could be staring at a wall and flashbangs could be happening all around you, but because of the way that they added it into the game, whatever they did during the spring patch, now even if you have your back to it or your side to it, you're still getting that full flash effect. And so as I said, I don't know if just that specifically has caused a lot of players to leave Battlefield, and my gut is telling me that it's not. It's really annoying, like especially when you're playing Team Deathmatch or you're playing on one of the close quarter maps like Metro and Locker. It does get very frustrating, but I don't know if that has deterred a lot of people to continue to play the game. I did go online to discover if there was a large disparity of players from what it was before the patch and what we have today, and there isn't really any concrete evidence that a lot of people have been leaving. There has been a slow trickle of player loss over the last couple of months, but that could just be contributed to the fact that the game has been out for almost 2 years at this point. Battlefield 4 is an old game, and the fact that there's still over 100,000 people playing concurrently over all the platforms is a real testament of how much people still enjoy this game. Don't worry, the community is still very healthy. On PC, there's still 25,000 people playing at any given time. Like, that's insane for a 2-year-old game. Another thing that could contribute to this slow trickle of player loss is that there's other games competing with it now. Hardline came out a couple of months ago. That definitely split up the player base. And while a large majority of the player base came back, they weren't satisfied with Hardline, it still doesn't take away from that slow player count loss. There's other games like Destiny, like there's any other game that's come out over the last year is competing with Battlefield 4, it's competing with the players' game time, and because of that, there has been this slow trickle. But overall, I wouldn't worry. I think that the spring patch, while yes, it does have its faults, it does have its issues, I don't think that it has been the catalyst that has destroyed Battlefield. I think actually, for the most part, it has been a good thing. It has improved weapon balance overall, at least in my eyes, I think for a lot of my friends as well. And so I don't really think there is any cause for concern. The next question comes from Mason, and it is, would you like to see Battlefield add a new stat that showed how much time you spent playing the objective? I'm not exactly sure how DICE would be able to quantify or come up with a number that would be able to illustrate how often you played the objective other than how many objective points that you get. You have to remember that there are a lot of ways to play the objective in Battlefield, and some of them may not appear like you're really playing the objective. If you're someone who plays a lot of Rush, but you play the objective like crazy, your objective time score is going to be a lot lower than someone who plays on Conquest all the time. It takes 2 seconds to arm an MCOM. It takes multiple seconds, tens of seconds, to capture an objective while playing Conquest. It's not really quantifiable. Like, there's going to be no way to compare or really give you a good indication of someone who plays the objective heavily on Rush. They're going to look like they're terrible, while the person who plays a lot of Conquest is going to look awesome in comparison. And then you have the players that are defending an MCOM. They didn't touch the MCOM. They didn't technically play the objective. There's no way of the server or the game knowing that they're playing the objective, but they're defending it. They're making sure that no one's touching the MCOM. They're making sure that no one's getting anywhere near it, and they're doing their job to help out their team, but their score or their time of playing the objective wouldn't be adding on up. And so, like I said, I just don't think that this is the right stat to be looking at. That said, though, I do think that your heart is in the right place. A long time ago, and it's been months now, DICE said that they were going to have a teamwork initiative. They were going to do their best to try to get players to work together a little bit more, but we haven't really seen anything come from that. And so personally, I would love if DICE went back on in and tried to incentivize a little bit more teamwork in Battlefield 4. One of the best ways I think that they could accomplish this is, well, first of all, just giving more points for playing the objective and doing team-based actions like reviving, healing, giving out ammo, but also at the end of the scoreboard, showcasing who was the best of the best at doing certain activities. Right now, the scoreboard just illustrates who is the best at killing people. If you see someone who went 60-2, you're gonna think that they're a god. You're gonna think that they're the best player. It doesn't showcase that the guy who went 30-20, yeah, he didn't have the best kill-death ratio, but you didn't know that maybe he had the most revives on your team. You didn't know that he revived 20 of your allies. You wouldn't know that he was on the objective for half the round, or he had the most objective points. You wouldn't know that he laid the most ammo and gave out the most ammo. That would be a great thing to have at the end of the round to maybe give people an incentive to fight over these coveted positions. If you see that Timothy 101 just got the most revives, you may now be slightly more incentivized to be like, hey, I would like to be at that top slot, or I would like to have my name in that category. It's a small step. I don't think it would revolutionize the game by any means, but it would be a good way of just illustrating and getting people to play the objective and not just be 100% concerned about their kill-death ratio. And so I'm really hoping that in the near future, I'm crossing my fingers, that DICE tries to address this a little bit. I don't think it's going to revolutionize the game. I don't think that it is a crazy issue that needs to be addressed, but a game like Battlefield that is oriented around teamwork, it would be nice if there was a larger incentive or more ways to get people to work together. That is just my 2 cents, and I love where your head is going. The next question comes from Lucas, and it is, what would you think about making the AC-130 back to what it was in Battlefield 3? I've been using it lately, and it is terrible. I'm gonna go with absolutely not. In my opinion, the AC-130 is one of the worst additions into the Battlefield franchise. Back in Battlefield 3, it was blatantly overpowered. When it first released with, what was it, the Armored Kill DLC, it was so busted that you could spawn in it, especially on Rush, and go 50-1, no problem. You didn't really have anything to do. You were just shooting and raining death down below. It didn't require any skill whatsoever, but you could just rake in the kills. It was glorious if you were the person who was inside of it, but when you were on the receiving end, it was a nightmare. To DICE's credit, they did go in and nerf it slightly. It's nowhere near as amazing as it was when it first released, but it's still a gameplay mechanic that I find to be terrible. In Battlefield 4, I really do think that it is one of the worst additions into the game, because when you're on the receiving end, you can't fight it. It slowly takes you out. Like, it doesn't kill you instantly. It does take quite some time, but there's no way for you to hide from it on some maps. If you're playing on Caspian Border, or better yet, Golmud Railways, if you're in the center of the map, you just die. Like, it will slowly take you out. There's no way for you to fight it, but you notice the AC 130 and they will slowly drop you, and it just sucks to fight against it. And so while realistically, yes, the AC 130 in real life destroys everything down on the ground. It just drops nukes everywhere. It's insane. Like, the firepower on that vehicle is insane. And you would think that in a video game, it would have that insane power, but because of just the way that the game works, and because the game is supposed to be fun gameplay-wise, I just don't think that it is a good addition to the game. And so personally, I think that they should just be removed entirely. We know that that's never going to happen. And so the fact that it's in the state that it is right now, where it's borderline useless, it just kind of peppers at people, I think is a good thing. And I would never, ever want it to go back to the insane power that it was back in Battlefield 3. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. As always, if you would like to submit your own question for a future episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.